The demo for Hex-a-Decimal is now available on Steam, and Steam Next Fest is coming up soon, which will allow Hex-a-Decimal to be seen by a larger audience. Since Next Fest provides a neat deadline by which to get a somewhat finalized version of the demo out, I have been hard at work ensuring that the demo is ready. In the last video, I put Hex-a-Decimal on Steam by creating a Steam store page to collect wishlists, but the demo wasn't ready to be played yet. Since then, the game has gone from looking like this to looking like this. In the last devlog, I talked about Hex-a-Decimal's transition to Steam, and how I was remaking it from scratch. Well, as you can see by this footage, which was used in the last devlog, the game was very bare bones at the time. It had a fully functioning level editor, which could make all the levels it needed to, the levels could be played, and it had a basic level selection screen. Now, this might sound like most of the game was already made, but I still had a lot to do, and over the coming months, I added all of the following features before putting the demo on Steam. The level editor was incomplete, so I had to fill in the space with the simulation control buttons and everything else. There's still a little empty space here though, I don't know what to do with that. The editor had a feature to ban certain components, which was done by pressing Shift plus the key associated with that component. This was unintuitive, so now you can also click on the box and it will open a visual menu which does the same thing. The main and level select menus were very incomplete, both visually and mechanically. So, you can now use the options menu and see your scores on each level, among a lot of visual improvements of course. You can now use Ctrl-Z and Ctrl-Y to undo and redo in levels. You can also save and load solutions for levels with up to 10 slots for saved solutions. You can also save and load levels in the editor and even hold save files in the options menu. Tutorials are now in the game. Obviously you can't put a game on Steam without tutorials. Also, bug fixes. You may or may not be surprised by just how many tiny bugs a game like Hex-a-Decimal can have. I mentioned the simulation controls before, but I cannot stress how big of a deal they are. You can now start and stop the sim, step forwards and backwards one cycle at a time, pause the sim, speed it up and slow it down, all with the mouse, keyboard or controller. Alright, I didn't even mention controller support. It's a little bit rushed and the tutorial text doesn't change when you have a controller selected, but if you know all the controls, you can play all 60 levels with only the controller. Of course, there are definitely other features I missed, like being able to save your solutions as animated GIFs, which is a feature the game has, but there are more pressing issues, and there's something I need to apologize for. I would like to start this chapter by playing a section from my previous devlog. Currently, the demo has 6 components and will have a set of 10 levels for each component, totaling 60 levels. If you were to play the Hex-a-Decimal demo on Steam, which I encourage you to do, you would find that there are only 30 levels, half of what I originally planned. The reasoning for this is actually quite simple. The full game will have 12 components, with each component having its own set. In the demo, a set is just 10 levels, but since the full game will have more challenging side levels, a set won't be defined by a specific number of levels in the full game. So, let's say I went through with the demo having 6 sets and the full game having 12. That's almost half the full game in the demo, and when I realized that the demo was going to include half of the full game, I was reasonably concerned. A demo for a game is something you try out in order to discern whether or not you'd be interested in buying the game proper. A demo that contains half the game's content defeats the purpose of a demo. It's like half a scoop of ice cream given away as a free sample. It stops being about the taste and becomes a meal in and of itself. So, instead of the demo being a little under half of the full game, I made it a quarter instead. So, I hope you can forgive me cutting back on the content in the demo. On the bright side, that means I can introduce some of the more exotic features planned for the full version in those 30 levels that otherwise would have been under the restrictions of the demo. As for what those features are, I'll get to that later, but before we get ahead of ourselves, I'd like to discuss the music and sound design of Hex-a-Decimal. As I said in the last devlog, Hex-a-Decimal's sound design is its most consistently praised element, and I have been working hard updating the music to ensure that Hex-a-Decimal's soundscape remains as polished as possible. The first track I considered fully complete was Pauser, which is why I showed it off in the last devlog. I consider Pauser to be the best piece of music I've made so far, even after finishing some of the other tracks for the game. The next track I finished and implemented into the game was the menu theme, which was unsurprising, as it's just a more polished version of the previous menu theme, rather than being an original theme that takes melodic and instrumental components from its predecessors. The next track I finished was, surprisingly, Breaker, a piece of music that plays during levels 51 to 60, and therefore wouldn't be in the demo. After that, I finished Conveyor, and only now, after having the demo out on Steam for over a month, have I finished Censor. Yep, that's right. One of the level themes was put into the game in an incomplete state, but in my defense, Censor was an incredibly finicky track to work on, and prioritizing finishing it over releasing the demo would have delayed the game unnecessarily. As for why the game sounds like this, there's multiple factors that go into Hex-a-Decimal's atmosphere, including gameplay, visuals, soundtrack, and sound effects. Focusing purely on how the soundtrack and sound effects play into this, the current Hex-a-Decimal soundtrack used in the Steam version is the third soundtrack I've made for the game. The first was a simple soundtrack I made during the game jam, in Beatbox. Then I went back a few months later and remade the soundtrack in FL Studio, and now I'm back in FL Studio making the soundtrack for the Steam version. My main issues with the previous soundtracks were that it didn't feel like it represented Hex-a-Decimal, in the sense that Hex-a-Decimal was a slow-paced puzzle game that invited you into this new way of thinking, where you started off knowing nothing about how the game works, and end up so deep in thought that everything starts to click suddenly. Hex-a-Decimal is a game full of emergent properties, where you start by understanding each individual component and what it does, slowly working your way up until you start seeing your solutions as more than the sum of their parts. The true beauty of Hex-a-Decimal is that even I, the person who made the game, can still learn new things. I still find new solutions to levels, new emergent properties, and when I do, I can't help but share them with the world. And isn't that what Hex-a-Decimal is? A new combination of the same old parts people have been putting together for decades, one that I want to show the world? Anyway, here's an excerpt from each of the three soundtracks, and you tell me which one gets across what I just said. So, how did I go about crafting the soundscape of the Hex-a-Decimal soundtrack we know now? Well, the songs are at a slower tempo, yes, but it really comes down to synth pads and effects. Take Pauser, for example. This is a screenshot of Pauser's project file in FL Studio. I know I keep using this song as an example, but it really is a good example here because of how simple the song really is. So, the song starts with 2 background synth pads that play throughout the entire song. The first sets a rhythm while the second plays chords in the background. Then the first melodic instrument comes in. Then the second melodic instrument. Then both are played together. And then my favorite part, where the third melodic instrument is introduced. So far in the song, it has mostly been melodic synth pads playing over the background synth pads, but here the melodies are removed to give the background pads some breathing room. Then, everything comes back before the song winds down to prepare for the loop. If you want an overview of why I want the tracks to sound like this, the simple explanation is that overall, the 4 tracks in the demo are intended to do the following: invite the player into the world of Hex-a-Decimal's logic by calming them with slow ambience, entice the player into wanting to play the game and engage with the puzzles with undertones of mystery and discovery in the tracks, and encourage the player to focus on puzzles with higher energy sounds intertwined with the aforementioned ambience and thought-provoking undertones to maintain the player's attention without distracting them from the gameplay. The sound effects add onto this by turning the player's solutions into, for lack of a better term, satisfying auditory cascades. So, once again, watch and listen to this clip, and let me know in the comments if Hex-a-Decimal sound design lives up to everything I just said. You might have noticed that I neglected to mention the theme for the level editor, which was planned for the demo, but I haven't started on. Right now the editor just uses the menu theme, but I will make the editor theme at some point. As I said last devlog, most people who play the game don't use or even acknowledge the editor, so while I do want to hold it to the same standards as the rest of the game, I can afford to be a bit lazy with it, and prioritize other parts of the game that people are more likely to see. I would also like to point out that when I was filling out the information for the Steam store page, I mentioned things that were in the current build of the game at the time, that being version 9, but are not currently in the Steam demo due to me starting from scratch to make the Steam version. Laziness aside, progress regarding Hex-a-Decimal has been really good. I have stayed motivated and productive over the past year and a half that I have been working on the game, and feedback from other people has simultaneously been overwhelmingly positive and very informative, letting me know what to improve and what directions to take. But nowhere in this entire video have I mentioned playtesting so far. I wonder why. Of course playtesting is getting its own chapter. It's playtesting. Anyone who is anyone understands that playtesting is the most important part of developing a game. So, how do I go about playtesting and how does it benefit Hex-a-Decimal's development? Well, I don't want to give specifics for the sake of privacy, but I was given the opportunity to showcase my game. I was given half a room, 2 rows of 6 computers totaling 12 computers that were running Hex-a-Decimal, but only enough headphones for a handful of people to play at a time. I wanted everyone playing to be able to hear the sound design, after all. Each person would complete an average of about 9 levels, most getting stuck on level 10, some people progressing into the teens and beyond, and others only completing the first few levels. When each person was done playing the game, I directed them to a stack of papers, handed them a page, and asked them to fill out a short questionnaire before they left. Here's what that questionnaire looks like, by the way. I also labeled and saved each of the save files before resetting the game for the next person, and when I got home, I put all of the information into a spreadsheet. Overall, 21 people played the game, and here's what the spreadsheet looks like. Being able to showcase Hex-a-Decimal and receive overwhelmingly positive feedback like this was a dream come true, and that day was easily one of the happiest days of my life. But the reason I'm sharing my experience here is so that I can show just how important playtesting is, and show an example of how to do it on a larger scale. Of course, 21 people isn't that many in the grand scheme of things, but if you're an indie game dev, given a similar opportunity, or are otherwise thinking of doing a playtest like this, I fully encourage you to take inspiration from the way I went about doing this one. And again, I cannot stress enough how important playtesting is. With the demo out on Steam, and development on it essentially finished for the time being, the only thing left to do now is finish the game and sell it. Finishing the game will be neither quick nor easy, as I keep running into problems of my own making due to my bad coding habits. The plan is to remake the game from scratch again, while pushing out updates for the demo every week or so, or whenever I have a new feature or bug fix that needs to be put out. But that's a topic for next devlog. Until then, I'm really excited for Steam Next Fest, and I'm confident that my game will perform very well. I have replaced placeholder art on my Steam store page with slightly less placeholder-y art and prettied it up a little bit. Anyway, demo's out, go play it.